Welcome, Soaring Sisters, to another episode. This time we're looking at flight analysis using something called IGC Spy. It's a lovely spring day here in Sydney. I'm shortly heading off to Lake Keepit to take part in a GP series, and I hope you're having a really great day wherever you are. My day hasn't started so well. I actually sat on my DJI Osmo gimbal and broke it. Very expensive. Anyway, this episode I'm going to be looking at flight analysis. And I'm hoping to create a bunch of different episodes that will help those of you who are thinking about getting into cross-country flying or competition flying, looking to fly further and faster. One of the tools that you can use nowadays is to analyze your traces. And there are lots of different ways that you can do that. What's different about IGC Spy is it allows you to compare yourself against others, particularly if the competition directors, if you like, or the regatta day directors allow upload of everybody's files so you can compare each other. And that's certainly what goes on at one of my clubs, Lake Keepit, which allows us to really develop our skills across country. So I'm going to take you through that analysis. Now, I'm not entirely aware how that you go about uploading everybody's files if you are, an organizer of a competition, but there's a contacts page on the site, and I say contact the person who runs the site and see what's required. Regardless of whether or not you have access at the moment, I want to talk about a couple of other things that IGC Spy does really well. One is a kind of proxy measure of your coring of thermals, in the sense that you have the standard kind of measure, which is how quickly you climb, which of course is what everybody's interested in, but you have another measure that I haven't seen anywhere else that helps you understand perhaps why you're not climbing as well. Most of us who are relatively experienced at thermaling don't have any trouble kind of finding the main part of the thermal, if you like, but what we don't do so well is core it really, really tightly in a way that will allow us to have the maximum climb. That's the difference between the really gun pilots and the average pilots like me. One of the proxy measures of how well you're doing that is something called orbit time. How long does it take you to complete an orbit? And IGC Spy measures that. And what that provides you is an idea based on some other parameters that IGC Spy does of how well you are cranking the glider over, how banked you are, or how fast you're flying is the other measure. So using orbit time, your climb rate, your orbit speed in knots, you can determine what is preventing you from climbing really well. The other thing it measures is something called netto, or neto as I tend to say, which is how your gliding, interthermal gliding LD compares to the design LD of the aircraft, or the polar, at a given plot point and at the speed that you're flying at. So that tells you basically how well you are flying in the energy, which is the other really important thing to flying cross country. How you are finding the energy and how you're flying in that energy without actually circling. Anyway, on to the analysis. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell notification so that you're aware of new episodes. Also, give us a thumbs up if you like this episode. Okay, let's take a look at IGC Spy. This is something you are going to love, I guarantee you. Now, I'm not 100% certain about how you get your competitions put up on here. I'd suggest get in and get on the contact page there and fill in your details and find out, or see what you can find out. I just registered as an individual and took part in a regatta at Lake Keepit. This was just a fun event, and so that's how I got to be on here with a bunch of competition pilots, or we're all having a fun regatta day at Lake Keepit. Now, I should also say it's a long time since I flew any competitions. I've never been a startling good competition pilot. I've just been your average competition pilot, I guess. So my results are not going to look spectacular, but they're probably going to look pretty similar to what yours might look like if you start flying competitions. So I think that's valuable. So let's take a look at this IGC Spy. This particular event, you can see me here, Kilo Oscar, in a Pegasus, and you can see start time, finish time. 2 hours and 25 was my flight time, which is pretty comparable to everyone but some of the guns. The Jaques had a 1 minute 56 time. This particular event, although over here on the map you can see the task and you can see there's certain size circles, in actual fact, Jaques, who does the handicapping and the task setting and has been doing this over many years, has got a brilliant analytical mind. He's come up with a system of handicapping that is the best I've seen. It not only takes into account the glider performance, but is pretty good at estimating the pilot's skills based on initially hours of flying, but then progressively performance in competitions. So it works pretty well, and the way we are handicapped is we all have different size cylinders to turn in. They're not the size that's shown here on the map. Now, unfortunately, my track just happens to be in a rather awful colour, kind of a khaki green, so you can't see it on this map. But I will get to my flight track a little bit later. But for now, just bear in mind that the flight was from Lake Keepit south to Corindi, west-northwest to somewhere or other, I can't remember where, Tampa Springs by the looks, and then up to Rangirai and then home. I think I made it home there on this day from looking at the results. A subsequent day I know I didn't make it home, so anyway. Let's have a look at what this software does. And I should tell you that the purpose of me showing you this is because if you are trying to improve your cross-country and competition flying, you can use all kinds of analytical tools, and they're great, but this one allows you to compare yourself in an event against other pilots to see where you lost time, and that is incredibly valuable no matter what you're flying and what your handicap and so forth. And it's quite clever the way it does it. So let's have a little look through. We'll just concentrate on my flight for the moment. I might bring my flight right up to close to the top so that we can see it next to the headings. So, call sign Kilo Oscar, glider is a Pegasus, start 0400 Zulu at 3,566 feet, finished at 0625 Zulu at 1,676 feet, total time 2 hours and 25 minutes and 28 seconds, number of glides 17, 61.9% of the time. That's not bad, considering my level of experience presently, or currency if you like. And hours spent gliding, 1 hour 30 versus time in thermals. Number of thermals, 14. 33.5% of the time. That's not bad. 48 minutes, 41 seconds. Now, talk to your coaches about what's a good ratio here, but you can see, I'm fairly comparable. Even some of the really good pilots are in the same sort of numbers ballpark. Here's one 57%, 67%, and so on. So, I'm not too bad really in that regard. Bear in mind also, I'm in a 15 metre glider. Some of these people are in 17 metre gliders. Yes, they're going further distance than I am, so it all kind of evens out. But if you are spending much more than that kind of number thermally, 30%-ish, then, maybe talk to your coaches about what's a good number. Tries, which is where I turned but didn't complete a circle, a little bit higher than I would like. You can see someone's down here at 4, a number of people at 3 tries. So I spent 4.5% of my time trying, which was 10 tries in total. My race distance was 148 kilometers. The big guns flew 200, 230. My track distance was 188.1. That's a bit of a giveaway. Distance deviation is 26.9%. Now, this is where I see the value of this kind of program. In the past, in competitions, my problem has been deviation. And that comes from a lack of experience, really. My NITO, that is, time spent flying in good energy, is actually quite good. But I'm deviating a little bit too much to do that. So maybe I could be planning my flight as I'm going along, the short-term planning a little better. We can have a look at that in some more detail, but I've always known that deviations are costing me, and let's see if that's true. That number certainly looks a little bit high to me. Thermal altitude gain, 12,824 feet. Thermal loss, 1,440 feet. Now, it's not as bad as some, as you can see. So I haven't spent time circling going down. That's a good thing. But I've probably spent a little bit too much compared to some. No, I'm about good. Thermal average, 916 feet per thermal. That's, about the same as the others. And here's where another problem pops up. And this is another great tool of this software. Orbit time is seconds. I don't know what stabilized was. The average time to complete an orbit while thermaling. Ideal values are 20 to 25 seconds. The number in brackets excludes the first and last turn of each thermal. So there you go, that's what the bracketed number means. So, I'm spending 32 seconds each orbit when I should be spending about 20 to 25. And if we exclude the first and last turns, I'm spending 35 seconds. That's way too high. This is something that reflects my lack of recent flying experience. It takes a little while to get used to cranking the glider over at a good bank angle at the optimum thermaling speed. So I am probably both too fast and too flat. Let's see if that's true. Orbit speed in knots, 58. Okay. Now you can see numbers faster than me, but 58 for my glider, dry. I don't know, I could knock a few knots off that, I think. But more importantly, I could bank a lot more. That much I know. So thermal vario 2.6 knots, that's pretty ordinary compared to the 3.5s that are up here, although there is a Ventus here at 2.6. Thermal vario. What's the difference there? The average climb rate for thermals excluding the first and last turn. Okay. Or is this the average climb rate for thermals? The average climb rate for thermals. Circle for more than 60 seconds. High is better. Yes. Okay. Of course it is. This is the most important metric to go fast. I don't know, I think NITO is one of the most important, but anyway, it's certainly a very important thing. So 2.6, 2.8 if we ignore the first and last turns. The fact that they're fairly close together is a good thing. It means that I'm getting established in the thermal fairly well. I'm just not climbing fast enough. Tries, altitude gain 295, tries, altitude lost 856, so I can do better at my tries, okay? Fewer tries. LD on track 41.3. That's pretty damn good for a Pegasus. So I suspect my NITO, my ability to fly in the energy, is pretty decent. Half a knot. I think that's deviation from... What is that? Let's have a look at what that is. NITO. How much better than still air was the glide? This metric is calculated and averaged for every fix and compared to the polar for the current speed. If the polar or wing loading are incorrect, this metric will be incorrect. This is the second most important metric to go fast. Okay, so agree with that. How much better than still air was the glide? Half a knot better than still air. That's pretty good. Let's look at others. Some people are 0.7. One person's 1.4. That's pretty amazing. In any case, that already shows up in the LD here on track. Okay, LD over the flown track includes deviations. Says the true track NITO is a much better metric. Okay, but the two working together are certainly telling me that, you know, I'm flying my glides pretty well. And I want to speak about that a little bit more actually for the newer pilots, because this is something that's really, really important. When you first start to learn to fly cross country and competition, there's a lot of time spent learning about McCready speeds and interthermal speeds, and then you find out nobody's doing quite what you're doing. We're all flying block speeds. Go and talk to your coach about these if you don't understand them. Then you think you've mastered that and you're trying to work out, well, if I can't go flying fast between these thermals because I lose too much height, and I can't fly slow between these thermals because I lose too much time, how the heck do I go fast? It's like, what am I doing? Am I flying... Is this a Goldilocks thing? And in part, it is a Goldilocks thing. You need to be flying your speed to fly very accurately. But as has been indicated by the comments on this page, there are two things that will increase your cross-country speed greatly. One of them I'm not doing too badly. The other one I'm not doing very good at. So, the first one that I'm not doing very good at is maximizing the climb rate in the thermal. Okay? And that's showing up in my orbit speed, which is a useful metric. Rather than just looking at climb, if you look at orbit speed, it will tell you you're either flying too fast or you're flying with not enough bank, or both. And in my case, it's probably more that I'm flying with not enough bank, but I'm probably flying just a knot or two too fast as well in my thermals. My cross-country, my interthermal speed is pretty good, and we'll see that in a minute. But it's now comes the bit that's listed here as being second most important, but I think is probably equally important, maybe even sometimes more important, is flying in good air. And that's indicated here by this 0.2 netto, whichever way you want to say it, and the LD being better than design. So the design LD of this aircraft is 41. And to fly a whole cross-country race at 41.4 is showing that I'm reading the energy pretty well. So, and flying in that energy pretty well. So why is that so important? You might have heard the saying, get high, stay high, don't turn. What's the don't turn bit that's counting here? If you don't circle, you are going forward towards your goal. If you can go forward towards your goal and lose less height while doing it than everybody else loses, you will save yourself many, many, many turns and therefore many minutes. So the trick is not only to climb really well in your thermals, but to fly between your thermals in the best air that you can find. And we were having a discussion about this the other day around a fireplace. And I was standing with one of our better competition pilots who's flown international competitions. And I was lucky enough that he was sort of counting me in as a competition pilot despite my relative inexperience compared to his. But we were talking about a couple of things, and one of them was this ability to fly in the energy. And he quoted Ingo Renner. Now, some of you will, of course, know the name, and some of you will know the man. And he said that Ingo said, when asked, how do you find that lift? How do you find that good air? And Ingo, in his usual style, said, you turn away from sink. Succinct, very clear, but that's exactly what you do. And we were discussing this, that there are a lot of newer cross-country pilots, and I've been there myself. You're flying from one cloud, say, to another cloud, and you might have a glide of, 10, 20 kilometers, depending on the day, and you just go straight line. And you go through whatever sink there happens to be, and you wonder, why am I not flying fast? And the answer is because you're not turning away from the sink. And by turn away, we mean just subtly. So there are a couple of tricks that you can use to do that, and you can talk to your coach about it. Obviously, there's the seat of your pants, and there's, what you see with your eyes, and there's, what you feel on the stick in the wings. There's also the turn away from sink principle. If you are watching your Vario descend, then try deviating course slightly. And then there's also flying with your current LD displayed on your glide computer. Bear in mind though, there's, just like the other instruments in your glider, there is some lag on that. But it's a good thing to have up on your glide computer, in my view. Bear in mind, I'm not a gun competition pilot. But anyway, you can rapidly increase your cross-country speed if you simply turn away from sink. So I hope that really helps. So as you can see, I am no gun pilot. I came in at a race speed of 61.1 kilometers per hour. And we've got people up here in the 80s and 90s. Now, I have flown my glider at 100 kilometers an hour plus on a course similar to this one at Lake Keepit, but on this particular day, I didn't. So let's see if my estimations of where I've let myself down, if you like, are true. And I might come back and do a second part of this analysis because I'm aware that I'm going to run up to a 30-minute timeline very soon. And this is a piece that's really useful. Where did I lose time? If I come down to my listing here, we can see if we we can't roll me up. We can see 256 seconds lost, 3% of my time, 1,109 feet lost at the start compared to some. So if I'd had a higher start, I would have gained 256 seconds. 3%. Not a huge thing. But the next one is really, really what we saw in the data. 1,115 seconds. That's a lot of time. 14.7% of my time lost due to slow climb. 2.6 knots versus 4.2 knots. Is that what it's telling me? There's 6. Yep. Compared to the best competitor of the day. 2.6 versus 4.2. Lost due to attempts. We thought that was bad. It's not that bad. 3%, about the same as the start, 3.94%. 8.1% lost due to poor Nito. Certainly not as bad as some. 19 seconds lost due to incorrect speed to fly, so my speed to fly is good. Lost due to high finish, 121 seconds, not a great deal, 1.4%. Here's another big one here. Lost due to deviations. So what I already talked about, I know my deviations are costing me. I know my climb rate is costing me. Those are the two things I need to work on. How valuable is that? I'm going to come back with a second part and we're going to have a look at some more of this IGC Spy. Well, I hope you really enjoyed that. And don't forget, if you did, to give us a thumbs up and also to subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you're aware of new episodes as they come along. I'm Kimberly Olsen, this is Soaring Sisters. Catch you next time.